You weren't always this quiet, were you? There was a time when your voice danced like fire, wild and untamed. A time when your laugh filled the room and your words cut through the air with truth. But then something changed. No, someone changed you. They didn't break you with fists. They broke you with whispers. They mocked you behind fake smiles. They clapped for you in public, only to tear you apart in private. You started noticing it in the little things, the way they looked away when you spoke, the way your ideas were met with silence, the way your presence was felt less and less until it was invisible. And so you stopped. Not all at once. No, you stopped in layers. First your dreams, then your words, then your hope. You started shrinking to fit inside the space they allowed you. You started apologizing for simply existing. You started disappearing. You didn't choose silence. Silence chose you. It wasn't peaceful. It wasn't sacred. It wasn't the silence of healing. It was the silence of suffocation. A silence that screamed louder than any voice could. Because when you wanted to cry, you smiled instead. When you wanted to scream, you swallowed your pain like poison. You became an actor in your own tragedy. And every day, the mask got heavier. "How are you?" they asked. And you said, "I'm fine." But inside, your soul was curled up in a corner, clutching the pieces they shattered. You were not fine. You were fighting demons that didn't even have names. You were carrying a pain so ancient, it didn't even bleed anymore. It just pulsed, but no one saw. Because you made silence look easy. You made suffering look beautiful. You made survival look like grace. They told you that silence was strength, but they lied. Silence, for you, became a prison. And every day you woke up inside that cage. A cage built by betrayal, forged by rejection, locked with shame. You screamed, but only inside. Because out loud, you were calm. Out loud, you were polite. Out loud, you were pleasant. They never heard the earthquake beneath your skin. You see, they didn't kill your voice. They buried it. Buried it under every "you're too sensitive." Every "don't be dramatic." Every "it's not a big deal." Every "just get over it." They made you question your reality. Made you wonder if your pain was even real. They made you feel guilty for hurting. And so, you locked it all away. Every time they silenced you, you folded yourself smaller until you didn't recognize who you were anymore. But listen closely. That silence, that wasn't weakness. It was evidence, proof that you endured. Because even with your voice buried, even with your truth ignored, even with your heart bleeding behind that forced smile, you survived. You carried your silence like a shield. You turned pain into poetry that no one read. You wrote your story in scars. They silenced you, but they didn't destroy you. There's a kind of scream that leaves no sound. A scream made of memories, betrayal, and isolation. And you carried it like a ghost on your back. But hear me now. That scream may have been silent, but it was real. It lived in your bones. It slept behind your eyes. It echoed in your chest every night you couldn't sleep. Silence was your scream, and it was louder than they'll ever understand. They thought your quiet meant you broke. They thought your stillness meant surrender. They thought your silence meant you had nothing left. But they forgot one thing. The most dangerous storms don't announce themselves. They build slowly, silently, patiently, until the sky cracks and the world learns your name. You are not fragile. You are not weak. You are not finished. You are the storm gathering behind the horizon. You are the fire smoldering in the ashes. You are the scream that never needed a sound to destroy everything built against you. Your silence was not defeat. It was transformation. The next time they wonder why you stopped talking, just smile, because they'll soon understand your silence now is louder than their screams. You didn't fall because you were weak. You fell because you trusted. You opened your chest like a window in spring. Let them see your heart. Let them hold your dreams in their hands. And they crushed it like it was nothing. You believed them. That was your only mistake. You believed the smiles that hid daggers. You believed the I've got you from mouths that had already planned your betrayal. You believed the hand that reached out, not knowing it was only to pull you deeper into the dark. They weren't strangers. That's the part that hurts the most. It wasn't the enemy at the gate. It was the friend in your home, the family in your blood, the lover in your bed, the voice in your mirror. You see, it's not the blade that breaks you. It's who's holding it, and they held it close. So close, you didn't feel the first cut, didn't see the betrayal coming, didn't think they would be the ones to twist your truth. You spoke, and they twisted your words. You cried, and they called you weak. You rose, and they laughed. You offered your truth, and they distorted it into shame. They made you feel guilty for being you. Too much. Too soft. Too honest. Too loud. Too quiet. So you bent. You bent until you broke, trying to fit their version of who you should be. You tried to love. You tried to lead. You tried to stand tall. And every time, they grabbed your ankles and pulled you back into the pit. These were the villains with soft voices, the kind that smiled when you succeeded, but smiled harder when you failed. They told you, this is love. This is for your own good. You're imagining things. No, you weren't. You were awakening to the truth. They were never there for your rise. They were only there for your silence, because your silence made them feel safe. Your silence made them powerful. You screamed into the mirror, and all it did was echo back your own pain. No comfort, no clarity, only shame wearing your face. You looked into your own reflection and didn't recognize the person they built out of your pieces. They took your light and gave you doubt. They took your dreams and called them delusions. They took your voice and taught it to beg instead of roar. And still you stayed, because you believed that loyalty meant pain. You believed that love meant sacrifice. You believed that family couldn't hurt you. You believed that friends couldn't lie. But betrayal doesn't always come wrapped in cruelty. Sometimes it comes dressed as concern. They buried you, and the world watched them toss the dirt, watched them speak of your flaws at your funeral, while you were still breathing. They buried you before you had a chance to bloom. And worse, they made you help. They made you carry your own shovel, made you feel like your silence was noble, like your invisibility was righteous, like your self-erasure was holy. But here's the truth they never told you. You weren't the problem. They were the poison. You weren't too much. They were too small to hold your fire. You weren't broken. They just didn't know how to handle someone unafraid of the truth. You were not wrong for loving deeply. You were not weak for hoping. You were not lost. You were misled. And now you stand among the ruins, but something inside you is shifting. Something cold, something calm, something dangerous, because you're done apologizing for being real. You're done whispering so they feel tall. You're done bleeding in silence just to keep the peace. Let them scream. Let them shout. Let them twist your story. You're not writing it for them anymore, because the next time your voice echoes, it will not come back as shame. It will come back as thunder, and when they hear it, they'll remember the silence they forced upon you, and they'll fear the sound of you rising. They watched you fall, and they clapped. They watched you grow quiet, and they smiled. They watched you walk away and whispered to each other, "It's over." They thought you broke. They thought they won. They thought your silence was surrender. But they didn't know what was really happening, did they? They didn't see you stitching yourself back together in the dark. They didn't hear the thunder you were storing in your chest. They didn't feel the storm building behind your eyes. They thought your silence meant you had nothing left. But really, it meant you were becoming something more. You see, manipulators, they love silence. Not their own silence, yours. They love when you stop speaking, when you stop questioning, when you stop defending yourself. They love when your fire dims, because it makes them feel tall, not powerful, just taller than the person they buried. Silence to them is not peace. It's proof. Proof that the manipulation worked. Proof that you folded. Proof that they won the war. But what they didn't realize is that silence doesn't always mean surrender. Sometimes it means survival. You weren't silent because you gave up. You were silent because you were tired of noise, tired of shouting into voids that only twisted your words, tired of defending yourself to people who already made up their minds. So you went quiet? Not because you were weak, but because you were choosing your battles. You were bleeding, yes, but quietly learning how to stop the bleeding yourself. They misunderstood the silence of the lion. The wolves were loud in your absence. They howled to the sky, drunk on the illusion of power. See? They barked. We got rid of them. They're gone. They've given up. But lions don't answer every bark. Lions don't argue with hyenas. Lions heal. And when they rise, they don't need to announce it. The earth just starts to shake. They didn't realize your grave was actually a garden. They didn't know the silence they took as your death was actually your transformation. They danced on your grave, not realizing it was your cocoon. They mistook stillness for weakness because they've never known the power of patience. They've never learned what it means to endure without applause, without witnesses, without validation. But you did. You disappeared from their world, only to reappear in your own. Stronger, sharper, smarter. There's a silence that comes after destruction. A holy silence. A warrior's silence. It's not the silence of retreat. It's the silence of someone sharpening their sword in the dark. And you were sharpening. While they mocked you, you were molding. While they erased you, you were rewriting your story in ink made of pain. While they celebrated your silence, you were constructing your legacy. Word by word, scar by scar. They thought the silence meant you gave up. But really, you gave up on them. You stopped arguing with people committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped running in circles for those who never clapped for your progress. You stopped bleeding for those who wouldn't even offer a bandage. You stopped showing up for people who treated your presence like noise and your silence like proof of defeat. Let them think they won. Let them toast their illusion. Let them wear the crown of their own lies. Because you're not in that war anymore. You're not their pawn. You're not their victim. You're not their trophy. You are the silence that swallowed their noise. You are the shadow that reminds them. What they tried to kill never died. You are the one who rose, not in rage, but in power. And now your silence walks before you. Now it enters rooms like a hurricane dressed in stillness. Now it makes them uncomfortable because they can't read you anymore, can't control you, can't reach you. And that terrifies them because they fed off your reactions. They needed your pain, your tears, your desperation. But now you've gone quiet, not from defeat, but from absolute, untouchable clarity. Let them talk. Let them bark. Let them echo old versions of you that no longer exist. You don't need to respond. Your silence has become a kingdom, and they are no longer welcome in it. They thought they buried you. They didn't know you were seed. And now you rise through the dirt, with roots made of fire and a spine made of stone. They thought they won, but you were just getting started. There comes a moment after the breakdown, after the silence, after the betrayal, when something stirs in the ashes. Not loud, not dramatic, just a flicker, a breath, like the air itself is holding its lungs tight, waiting for something ancient to wake. That's where you are now, in the stillness. But this stillness, it's different. This isn't the silence of being silenced. This is the silence of becoming. You've stopped crying, not because you no longer feel, but because something deeper has started speaking. And it speaks without sound. It speaks through your posture, through the way your eyes now hold storms instead of tears, through the way your footsteps no longer chase anything. They just command. You don't explain yourself anymore. You don't beg. You don't announce your worth. You walk like someone who knows. And that is terrifying to them, because you've gone quiet again. But not out of fear, out of focus. This is the volcanic silence, still but dangerous, calm but calculated. They think you're resting, but you're not. You're sharpening your thoughts, sharpening your instincts, sharpening your truth. Every second of silence is a grindstone. Every breath you take is a quiet rebellion, Because now, you're not just healing, you're building. Before, you were screaming to be seen. Now you're studying the world that blinded you. You're noticing, you're remembering, you're reclaiming. The world that tried to mute you is starting to notice your stillness, and it unnerves them because they expected you to break forever, but instead you're calculating. They expected you to crawl, but you're pacing now, like a lion inside the cage, waiting for the lock to rust. You're not shouting, you're not proving, you're just preparing. That's the difference. You've entered the part of the story where the hero doesn't beg for a happy ending. They forge it. You've become a forge. Your silence is molten now. It drips behind your eyes. It glows under your skin. They don't see fire, but they will, because this is the breath held before the roar, the stillness before the sky splits open, the pause before the thunder walks the earth. You are no longer surviving. You are calculating. You are gathering. You are becoming. You are becoming the kind of silence that doesn't need to speak to be heard. A silence that speaks through presence, through eyes that have seen too much and still chose not to bow. A silence that walks into rooms and shifts the temperature. You don't raise your voice anymore. You raise your frequency. And those who can't rise with you, they fall away in your wake. There's a reason storms don't scream before they arrive. They gather quietly. They pull power from the sea, the air, the unseen. And when the time comes, they don't explain. They just unleash. You are that storm. And right now, you are gathering. You stop trying to convince anyone of your value. That was the final break. And in that break, you found your power. Now, even your silence has a spine. Now your stillness has claws. So you were. They told you to keep going. So you did. But no one ever asked how much it cost. You were dying quietly, and no one noticed. Because you made pain look professional. You made grief look graceful. You made survival look easy. You didn't bleed on the floor. You bled in silence, behind closed doors, between deep breaths, between fake laughs, between moments of, I'm okay. But here's what they missed. Your mask was not a weakness. It was proof of your endurance. Every time you faked that smile, you were surviving. Every time you wiped your tears before someone walked in, you were saving yourself. Every time you held it together, not because you wanted to, but because you had no other choice. That was strength. That was war. And you fought it, alone. But now you're learning that you don't have to carry that mask forever. Now you're realizing that pretending to be fine almost destroyed you. Now you understand that survival shouldn't require self-betrayal. Now your silence is no longer a performance. It's a declaration. Not, I'm okay, but I am healing. Not, I'm fine, but I am rebuilding. Not, nothing's wrong, but everything hurt, and I carried it anyway. You still showed up, and that matters. You showed up when you were empty. You showed up when you were dismissed. You showed up when no one showed up for you. So now it's your turn to show up for yourself. No mask, no disguise, no need to pretend. Let them see the scars. Let them hear the silence. Because what's behind your smile isn't shame, it's survival, and it's louder than they'll ever understand. You thought the pain was punishment. You thought the silence was failure. You thought the loneliness was the end. But now you're starting to see it for what it really was. A forge, a place of fire, a place of pressure, a place where what was soft became steel, and what was broken became unbreakable. They thought they buried you, but they planted you in a furnace, and every betrayal, every tear, every scar became heat, became hammer, became spark, and pain that once tried to end you began to shape you. You see it now, don't you? How the silence gave you space to finally hear your own truth. How the isolation turned into insulation from the voices that once drowned your own. How the heartbreak broke open a door inside you that had never been touched by light. This is the moment the hero rises, not from applause, not from rescue, but from the ashes of everything that tried to destroy them. You didn't become who you are in spite of the pain. You became because of it. Because pain taught you things that comfort never could. Pain showed you who your real allies were. Pain revealed the truth of your own voice. Pain stripped away the masks the world demanded, until you were left with only one thing: yourself. No filters, no pretending, just raw and real and powerful. You were never meant to be soft forever. You were meant to be tempered. And pain was the fire. They didn't see it happening. How could they? You went quiet. You withdrew. You stopped answering the world. But inside you were building something ancient, something rooted, something untouchable. They thought your silence was surrender. But it was blueprint, because the ones who survive without being saved, they don't return the same. They return unchained, no longer needing approval, no longer hungry for validation, no longer seeking belonging in places they outgrew. You stopped chasing light and started becoming it. And this is where the journey changes. This is no longer about them. This is about you, about what rises when nothing else remains, about the empire built from broken pieces. You see, now you don't fear the pain. You understand it. You know how it moves, how it disguises itself, how it teaches. And that makes you unstoppable. They thought your silence broke you, but it didn't. It built you, brick by brick, scar by scar. It rebuilt the parts of you that had been shattered by noise, the noise of fake love, the noise of expectation, the noise of unworthy voices, speaking louder than your soul. Now it's just you and the fire you walked through, you and the scars that speak louder than any scream, you and the truth you carved with your bare hands. In a world that tried to erase you, you didn't just survive the pain, you translated it, transformed it, transcended it. So when they see you now and wonder how you got here, don't say a word. Let the silence speak. Let the storm in your stillness explain. Because you no longer need to shout. Your life is the roar. They still don't listen, do they? Even now, after everything, they don't hear the shift in your footsteps. They don't recognize the way your silence has changed. They still think you're just quiet. But your silence isn't soft anymore. It's sharp. It has teeth now. And it bites. You used to beg to be heard. Now you don't even bother. Because something far greater has awakened inside you. Not the need to be seen, but the power of being unignorable. You don't walk into rooms looking for approval. You walk in, and the air shifts. The temperature drops. The noise quiets. You don't speak, but they feel you. They can't hear you now, but they feel your absence, like a chill down their spine. They feel your growth, like a mirror they can't look into. They feel your silence, like thunder behind a distant mountain. They know it's coming, and they know it's going to change everything. Because you didn't just go quiet. You went deeper. You went inward. You went to war with yourself. And you won. In the dark. In the quiet. In the hours no one watched. You didn't need a stage. You didn't need applause. You just needed time and pain and fire. And now, you've become the thing they can't ignore. They thought silence meant you disappeared. But no, you multiplied in shadow. You trained in silence. You disciplined your mind. You hardened your spirit. You rewired every weakness into strength. So deeply that now even your energy commands respect. You no longer seek revenge. You no longer want them to hurt. Because you've realized something far more powerful. You don't have to punish them. Your existence will. Your success is silent. But it's solid. And they'll feel it. Like an earthquake beneath their feet. While they stand on the house of cards they built. Your winds don't scream. They whisper. But oh, how loud a whisper can be. When it's backed by truth, you're no longer fighting for them to understand. Now you're just walking in your truth. And the echo is starting to shake the walls they hid behind. This is what real power looks like. Waking up with peace. Building in silence. Becoming undeniable. Without ever needing to announce yourself. They'll pretend not to see you. But they'll feel your name in their throat. When they try to sleep at night, they'll scroll past your progress, pretending it doesn't burn. But it will. It already does. Because the echo of who you used to be is now louder. then the voices that once silenced you, they will learn. They will learn to fear. The echo they once ignored, they will learn that the person they doubted became the storm they can't outrun. They will learn that silence is not emptiness. It is control. It is depth. It is power that chooses not to perform. Let them sleep. Let them laugh. Let them keep talking. You don't need to respond, because what's coming from you is not a sound. It's a shift. And when it hits, it won't need to speak. It will be felt. They scream now, not you. You don't need to, because your silence speaks in ways their noise never could. It walks into the room before you. It chills the air. It stills the chaos. They never expected this. They thought the only way to be powerful was to be loud, to shout, to demand, to control the narrative by drowning you out. But now, you've gone quiet, and they've gone desperate. They laughed. Now they panic. They shouted. Now they beg. They mocked. Now they whisper. They stood tall. Now they tremble. Because silence is no longer your prison. It's your throne. You no longer explain yourself. You no longer perform. You no longer flinch when they raise their voices. Because now you understand. Real power doesn't need volume. It needs presence. It needs poise. It needs nothing but truth. Let them scream. Let them spiral. Let them throw tantrums trying to get a reaction from the person they once silenced. You don't respond anymore, because silence isn't your weakness. It's your weapon. And isn't that what they fear most? That you've stopped playing the game. That you've stopped reacting to their noise. That you've stopped lowering your vibration just to meet their chaos. Now you walk with peace. Not the peace of surrender, but the peace of a warrior who's already survived the worst. You see, there's a kind of silence that screams without ever raising a voice. The kind of silence that wraps around the truth and refuses to argue. The kind of silence that makes people hear their own guilt echo back at them. They once thought your quiet meant defeat. Now they realize it means dominion, because you don't just walk into the room now. You shift it, without a word, without a scream, without a need to prove anything to anyone. They scream now, because silence has turned into their worst nightmare. It used to comfort them, back when they thought it meant they'd won. But now, it's deafening. Now your calm burns louder than their rage. Your absence weighs more than your presence ever did. Your stillness shakes the ground beneath their delusion. You are no longer fighting for your voice. You've become the echo of dignity, the echo of endurance, the echo of every unspoken truth that now thunders through your silence. They can scream, but it won't save them now, because what you've become cannot be unmade. You didn't need to shout. You just needed to survive. And now, you are louder than their screams. By saying nothing at all, you don't even need to speak now, because your presence does the talking. Your walk delivers the message. Your silence commands the room. Your shadow walks in before you, and it says everything they need to hear. Once upon a time, you begged for recognition. You shouted, cried, pleaded to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. But not anymore. Now, you walk in silence, and the silence is louder than anything they've ever screamed. You became your own storm, not loud, not violent, but relentless, unavoidable, elemental, a force that doesn't seek permission. You are not waiting to be chosen anymore. You are not asking to belong. You are not knocking on locked doors. You are the door now. They look at you differently, even if they don't say it out loud. They feel it, the change. They don't know when it happened, but the weight of who you are now makes them hesitate. Your energy feels different, like steel wrapped in calm, like thunder hidden in quiet eyes, like something wild that cannot be controlled, only respected or feared. You didn't just heal, you rebuilt. And what you built was not soft, it was sacred, it was sharp, it was solid. You walk alone now, not because you were abandoned, but because you outgrew the noise. You don't need a crowd. You are the parade. You are the presence. People used to overlook you, used to talk over you, used to laugh at your softness, at your struggle, at your silence. Now, They go quiet when you walk in, not because you demand it, but because your stillness is undeniable. It's not what you say, it's what they feel when you say nothing. They silenced you once, but now your silence silences them. They mocked you for breaking, but now they stare, stunned, because what rose from your ruins carries a power they'll never understand. They tried to bury you, with shame, with doubt, with dismissal, and now that very shadow, the one they tried to erase, walks before you like a warning. Your aura is not noise, it's pressure. Your presence doesn't entertain, it commands. You don't explain anymore. You don't chase, don't justify, don't shrink. You simply show up, and the space bends around you because power doesn't shout. It doesn't chase validation. It doesn't prove anything. It just exists. Like fire, like the ocean, like the truth. And now, you are the truth. You are the proof. You are the quiet answer to every loud lie they told about you. They tried to erase you, but now the world notices what they tried to bury, and it terrifies them because your silence shakes rooms, louder than their screams ever could. You no longer walk in pain, you walk in power. And your shadow? It walks ahead of you. As a reminder, this is who I became. When no one thought I'd survive, let this be the final truth they never saw coming. You are no longer a victim. You are the storm they prayed would never rise. They silenced you, but your silence didn't end your story. It started your legend. They thought they were ending you, but all they did was give you space to awaken, because they never feared your noise. They feared your becoming. They feared what would happen if you ever stopped explaining, stopped apologizing, stopped shrinking. They feared the day you'd stop surviving and start commanding. And now that day has come. You are no longer asking for a seat at the table. You are the table. You are the fire. You are the storm behind the stillness. And when they look at you now, they don't know whether to run, bow, or beg, because you don't look like what you've been through. You don't speak from wounds anymore. You speak from wisdom. You don't carry pain on your back. You wear it as armor. Every scar, a scripture. Every silence, a sermon. They tried to erase you with noise, and you answered with presence. You walk like someone who remembers the fire. Who became the fire? Not wild, not reckless, but controlled, focused, untouchable. You learn to burn without destroying, to rise without revenge, to win without needing applause. And that's what they feared all along. They feared you would realize you never needed them. They feared you would stop seeking closure, stop begging to be understood, stop explaining your worth to those committed to forgetting it. They feared the moment you chose yourself without permission. And now, you speak without words. You lead without followers. You shine without asking the darkness to leave. You've become a force, not loud, not violent, but complete. So, to the one reading this, the one who's been through fire and silence and sorrow, rise, not for revenge, not for validation, but because it's time. Rise quietly, rise completely, rise like the ending they never expected, and the beginning they never deserved. You are not here to shout anymore. You are here to stand, because now your silence is no longer an absence. It is a presence, unshakable, unmistakable, unapologetic. And if they ask who you are, tell them, I am the fire you tried to snuff out, the storm you mocked in its silence, the voice you thought you erased, the truth you feared would rise. You silenced me once, but my silence wrote a legend.